What's up, you guys? Welcome to another episode of Just Us, the podcast about mental health and the justice system and how creative expression and purpose can be used to make meaning and cope. Today, I have a very special guest with me, Gustave Koumare, aka G. He is all the way from New York, and he has a very, very interesting story, and I think you guys are going to be really inspired by what he has to say today. So welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
Of course. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Gustave Koumare, born and raised in New York City. Background is African, but I was born and raised in New York City. And I currently am doing operations at a charter school, but I have also been doing program coordinating and coaching with a nonprofit organization called the PSA Cardinals. Mm-hmm. And I've enjoyed that for the last 5-6 years now. And just looking to obviously use those things that I've done with with PSA and with Success Academy, and use that towards Recess that I started with a friend of mine. And Recess is a huge thing for me right now, something that is inspiring, and something that I have pride in order to teach the kids financial literacy. That's some of the things that I'm currently doing.
Nice. Ooh, I'm excited to get into it. Okay, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's go.
It's just us. Let's go. So I want to talk about New York.
Yes.
I love New York. You know how much I love New York.
I know. You've been a million times.
Oh my God, I've been a million times. So you're from Harlem. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I want you to tell me a little bit about what Harlem and the city mean to you.
Harlem and the city. The city is, I think at this age, I have a love-hate relationship with the city at this point. I've been in the city for a very long time, and I do love it. I love the speed that it comes with. I love the hustle. I love the grind that it instills in you. Mm-hmm. But I also do think that people can get lost in the city pretty easily. Yeah. But there's a lot of opportunities for sure. And I think the city is one of the best cities in the world, of course. New York City is definitely one of the best cities in the world, if not the best. And I think that it's given me a wide range of experiences, and also a wide range of thought processes that I can kind of be able to maneuver and use in my everyday life.
Yeah, absolutely. What would you say growing up, or how would you say growing up in Harlem has shaped the way you view the world today?
I think growing up in Harlem has taught me how to be street smart first, and being able to maneuver throughout the city. But I also do think it's given me the opportunity to see a wide range of people in general. Yeah. And that's just how I was raised, by different cultures. But the city has every single culture, and going in different parts of the city, as you get older, you start to see how meshed the city actually is. Yeah. And being able to meet different people along the way, I think is one of the biggest things and biggest opportunities that the city provides.
Yeah,
sure.
Absolutely. Okay, so what was life like growing up for you in Harlem? Like, let's bring it all the way back. So I want to talk about your upbringing, your childhood.
Yep.
What was life like for you when you were young?
When I was young, I went to public school up until 6th grade. Okay. And that was a challenge itself. Being from an African family, you kind of get picked on, being called African booty scratcher and shit like that. You know what I mean? So we definitely got picked on a lot as a kid. But that's when you get into your fights and you get into your trouble in school, you get in trouble at home, and you learn your little lessons as a kid through those instances.
Were you scrapping when you were little?
I feel like I had to be. You kind of are falling into that hood tradition, street tradition of protecting yourself and just learning how to stay strong in what you believe in, I guess, from a young age. Even though you don't even know what you believe in yet, you kind of just fighting for yourself. So being picked on was part of our upbringing a little bit in school, but I feel like that died out after a while. Now Africans, everybody loves African music, everybody loves the African culture a little bit more now, and it's appreciated. But I think growing up, it wasn't as appreciated. It was more of a newer thing, and that kind of molded my childhood into learning that it's not easy. You know what I mean? You got to figure things out. You got to move around, and you got to be able to figure out who is actually supporting you, and who actually cares about you. Because there's a lot of people in the city. You're gonna have a lot of friends that become associates that just become lifelong friends as well. You know what I mean? But you also lose people along the way. So I think those are things that you learn as you continue to grow in the city. You're gonna meet a lot of people because it is the city.
Right.
So that's
what was
crazy.
the cultural makeup of when you were in public school? Like, what was the cultural makeup of the school that you went to?
The schools I went to were mostly, I would say, African American or Hispanic.
Okay.
We lived in at first we lived in Spanish Harlem.
Okay.
And then we moved up to Harlem around 116th area. So a lot of Hispanics at first, Hispanics and African Americans, to be honest.
And then after, you said until 6th grade you went to public school?
6th grade, and then I went to Catholic school after that.
Okay.
And that was all boys school, so that was a transition.
Oh, wow.
That was a transition going to from public school to all boys Catholic school. At that, and that kind of was a challenge as well, because you're getting picked on in middle school and in public school. It's not happening as much in the Catholic school. But you're also learning how to be around boys all the time,
right?
Who are more jokey, who are more physical, who are more challenging, I guess, and competitive. So you're also learning how to deal with those challenges as well as you compete against other guys or other young men. And culturally, I think I've been able to go from the public school to the Catholic school has taught me different aspects of religion in general. In a public school, it's not talked about. In the Catholic school, it's talked about every single day.
Right.
And then also my African family was Muslim. So I was dealing with those challenges of now also seeing a lot of more cultures and more religions, and having a bigger mindset of understanding why people are the way they are, and why people do the things that they do, whether it be religion-based or whether it just be based off of their upbringing. You know what I mean? So that was huge for me as well.
Yeah, especially when, like, you all kind of have a common understanding of growing up in the city, but then everybody still kind of grows up differently, depending on, you know, the culture, the background, the religion, maybe even just what neighborhood. Like, it really depends.
Literally, it depends on your neighborhood. It depends on the parents. It depends on your friends that you're growing up with, your big bros and your big homies, and who are the ones influence you when you go back home after school. You know what I mean? Even the school that I work at currently now, there's kids who are going home, learning some things in the hood, bringing it back to the school, and it's not the most positive things. You know what I mean? And it's not their fault. It's just simply what they're surrounded with. You know, and it's not something that they can control.
Right.
So
absolutely,
it's challenging as well.
And I think it's so important. And I think I forget if it was the first episode. I think it might have been in the first episode. I was talking to Jeff about how kids are going to school and learning one thing, and then they're going home and learning something completely different, or something that is countering what the school's teaching them. And then outside of the home, when they're with their friends and they're just hanging out, they're learning something else maybe. And how confusing that has to be for a kid. And just trying to figure out how to navigate that, and which thing they want to really like adopt and keep with them. Yeah.
And I think that itself may be one of the biggest challenges I had as a kid, is knowing and trying to find myself, going to Catholic school, coming home and dealing with a super religious Muslim family. And then also having a Jewish godmother who isn't the most religious, but she did have a little bit of culture to her. And would also incorporate that in me, and I would go with her to some of those events. So my battle was going to Catholic school, coming home, dealing with Muslims who's telling me to pray 5 times a day, while also sometimes having some days where I'm going to my godmother's house and there's no religion talked about at all, right? So it's a different aspects of what works for me.
Yep.
Why are they choosing these religions? So
Yep.
why do they feel like these religions coincide with what they believe in the most?
Yep.
And how is it affecting them in the way they live their life and the way they have grown up to this day? So if they're 40 years old and they're still doing those things,
Yep.
how do I want to think when I'm that age?
Right.
And I think that's things that I've kind of had to figure out. You know what I mean? It wasn't something that was talked about. It wasn't something that I don't even think people knew that I was going through.
Yeah.
Or probably I didn't even know I was going through.
Right.
Just had to figure it out as you went every single day.
Interesting. How, I never thought about that, about going to a Catholic school, potentially not identifying as Catholic, and having even just that alone, having two different views, never mind having potentially three, around you like all the time. So where are you at now with your identity? And that, like, do you feel like you have decided, I identify more with this religion or this background?
Yes, I do think that because of my upbringing at home, I do coincide with the Muslim religion the most. And I do think that is what relates to me the most.
Yep.
I wouldn't say I'm a religious person at all. But I do think my mom, my aunt, and my dad's side of the family have been able to instill those Muslim values in me. And I do also think that all three of those religions, the Muslim religion, the Jewish religion, and the Catholic, have a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what some people don't understand because they're staying away from each other instead of having these conversations where they're actually talking about things that they can do together.
Right. Absolutely.
Or things that they have in common. Right. So I think the Muslim religion is something that I relate to the most, but I wouldn't say that I'm a devout religious Muslim. But if someone does ask me what religion are you, I would say Muslim.
Okay. Yep, that makes sense. So talking about all of these different things, and it sounds like you navigated a lot of different things throughout your childhood and upbringing, living in the city, having different cultures around you, different religions. Was mental health talked about when you were younger, whether it was at school, with your family, with friends, in some aspect? Was it ever discussed?
No. Growing up, it was not discussed. The African background, a lot of things aren't discussed. A lot of things are not discussed, even to this day. I still have questions of things that I want to find out about my upbringing, my family past, just things that you just wonder about that other people may know about their families,
Yep.
And it's something that's not talked about. Mental health is not talked about. Expressing your feelings is not something that culturally Africans do, from my experience at least.
Yep.
And we're not really taught on how to express your feelings or when to express your feelings, or the words to use to express what is going on in your head. And it's not as welcoming. It's more so deal with it, move on, and do what you have to do.
Yep.
And sometimes that, as we all know, lingers in your head and becomes a negative aspect in your life that you're not able to get rid of these things or these experiences that were traumatizing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or very good experiences that you also weren't able to talk about with anybody.
Yep.
Just because people don't talk about things as much or converse about those things. And I think that it's about finding the balance within your family where you feel comfortable enough to have someone to talk to. But I would definitely say within the African culture, expressions were not relevant too much. If you're being reprimanded or in trouble for something, you put your head down, you listen, you don't do it again.
Yep.
And that's an ongoing cycle. And being raised by my godmother, she was a little bit more different. And that's where I had issues growing up as well, where in the African household, it was don't talk about your feelings. And to my godmother, she would be more expressive of trying to get me to talk about my feelings. And I'm just like, no, that's weird. What is that?
You're like, what do you mean? What are you talking about?
I do that?
Is this a trap?
Yeah, like why I'm expressing my feelings to you for what?
Yep.
To do what? To get what? You know what I mean? And I didn't really understand that that's how you get what you want. Um, that's how you kind of get things off of your chest and are able to come into a common understanding of anything that's happening.
Yeah, and like get your needs met.
Exactly. So I think that was weird for me, is having that double-sided relationship with expressing myself. Is one family saying or not allowing it, not saying don't do it. They're not saying don't do it.
They're not saying anything at all.
It's just not something that's done.
Yeah.
It's not something you see happening, so you don't know to do it.
Right.
And then on my godmother's side, she's more expressive for trying to get me to talk, and I'm just like, no, that's not happening.
It's so interesting, and I think that the more and more, we have these conversations, we realize how much culture plays a role in like what is talked about, when it's talked about, and I just think it's so important for everybody to just have that somewhere in their mind, thinking about that when they are having an interaction with someone, because we really all do come from different places, and what might be very normal to someone in a household might be very different for the next person. And so I don't know if you'll have an answer to this question. It's okay if you don't, but I was thinking when you're talking, for somebody who doesn't understand or know anything about your cultural background, how do you explain to someone maybe why that is the way it is, where it's like you don't think it's talked about? And I know that you might not have the answer, but from your experience, how could you maybe conceptualize that to someone who might seem that as like, well, why don't you talk about it, or why isn't it talked about?
I don't know if I have an answer in my experience of why expressions aren't talked about. I think it's honestly, I think it's part of the history of our families having to travel from Africa to make the transition into America. That I'm thinking about it, I think it's more so the trauma that they're going through to get here is so hard for them.
Yeah.
And they go through so much to get here and figure out their life while they're here, that a lot of little things that you're dealing with don't mean as much as that bigger thing, that biggest step that they had to take in order to save their family's life.
Right.
Right. So I can see it potentially being a thing where it's like, that's not that big of a deal to me. So that's not something we need to really discuss, and life will go on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then when you tie in the religion aspect of it, the Muslim religion is a lot of peace, tranquility, trusting in God to allow things to happen. And when you put those two things together, sometimes there could be no reason to talk about it if you're leaving things up to God in order to handle it.
Right.
So I can see that being an idea of why things aren't talked about as much, because in big picture things, they might not be as big as leaving Liberia because of a war to come to America to save your child. And, you know what I mean? That's literally the story of my aunt who came and who I was raised by. She had to leave Liberia during the war and have my cousin and come to America, where she had maybe a brother or two here already, and they just had to figure it out, you know?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that was a great answer. And I think that it sounds like it's almost like you said, like, and I think this is a little bit similar to my family background of just being Portuguese and coming over. It's like, oh, we did all these things, and not saying this is the same at all, but like we made all these sacrifices and we had to do all these things. So like, what do you mean you're sad? Like, what are you sad about? You know what I mean? Or kind of like, you have no idea what it's like, those kinds of comments.
Exactly.
And then also adding in the religious thing as well, because the Portuguese background, same thing. It's like, okay, so then pray about it. Like, talk to God about it.
Exactly.
Like, I don't know what you want me to say to you.
Exactly.
So I think that that's really interesting. When would you say was the first time that you had an experience with mental health, whether it was like something that you were going through or something you saw in somebody that you know, and you were kind of like, okay, mental health is a thing?
My first experience with mental health, I mean, I would say more so myself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I was able to. I don't think I knew what mental health was growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it wasn't a phrase or a word that was said a lot.
Yep.
You just kind of knew that people were going through things and
Mm-hmm.
kind of had to figure it out. I think as I got older and started to learn more about mental health and just learn about why people are the way they are, and kind of using that thought process for myself, I think the first experience was really realizing that losing my father before I was born just shaped me to be who I was. And I think that was my first aspect of kind of just realizing that it is different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It is a challenging thing. It is different, and it is something that you see in your everyday life.
Yep.
And you want to be able to strategize and figure out your everyday life because of that thing happening to you.
Right.
So, I think that was my first thing of like mental health, and knowing within myself, like, all right, this is something that happened. Deal with it, figure it out. Don't push it to the side. Think about it. You know what I mean? And talk about it.
Yeah. I bet that, I mean, and I don't want to assume, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I bet that probably related to what you said earlier about having like a lot of questions about your family and all of those things that you said, like you still sometimes don't have answers to today. And trying to process kind of all of that at the same time. Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
I want to talk about a specific quote that you and I had talked about prior to today. And basically the premise was, as Black people, this is the quote, as Black people, we don't have enough therapy, right? So there's shit that's going on in the neighborhood, in the environment, and people think it's cowardice or that you're weak if you were to go get help. But the end of the quote said, we need so much help. That's really powerful.
Yeah, I agree a lot with that. On top of, I think the city also taught me, on top of, because I was a wild teenager. I was just like, not the wildest of the wildest, but I do think I was trying to figure that balance out, right? Of Catholic school for high school, and then going home, dealing with the Muslim family, but also wanting to be a teenager and just be free a little bit. You know, so I was dealing with that challenge of doing that. So in those experiences, I've met a lot of people who didn't know what they wanted. You know what I mean? They didn't really have the experience to know what they wanted. They didn't have the experience of going to school every single day, even, and getting the knowledge that there's more to life than what you're dealing with in your 4 or 5 block radius, right? And they're doing this. You can possibly be doing the same thing every single day and not be able to ever see those things.
Yeah. It's like all they know.
Exactly. It's completely all they know. And that itself is traumatizing because you're put into a box, and you're not truly living your life. You know what I mean? And those people don't even know it, right? So I think that with the quote, and they're basically saying that everyone in the neighborhood is not able to express themselves. It's a lot of off of respect, looking to get respect or looking to get some type of money. And it's an everyday grind that they're grinding every single day to figure out what the next day is going to look like, what the next month is going to look like, what the next, I don't even think they're thinking about the next year.
And
right?
like, if there is going to
be day to day, how it's going to be, or week to week, how it's going to be. And they're not able to truly take time to express themselves, take time to figure out what's going on in their life, and even think through those things.
Yeah.
You know?
And probably even whether or not there is going to be a next day. Yeah. And I think that like something else that the individual was saying was how like I still think about every time that I heard like gunshots ringing out, and like that's traumatizing. At the time, did I know that? Probably not, right? Because that was just another day.
For sure.
And now that I'm getting older, I'm realizing how much This isn't what he was saying. I guess I'm like just like kind of conceptualizing it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sure as people get older, they are thinking about all of that stuff that they were seeing every day.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Like, and it can be traumatizing. And obviously trauma looks different for everybody depending on how they react to a situation. But,
Mm-hmm.
and then, you know, how he's saying like, all of this stuff's happening, but we're weak if we try to get help, or we are seen as cowards. We're like, we really need so much help.
Yeah. I mean, I think people, from my experience alone in being a teenager in the city, I've feel like I've seen it all.
Mm-hmm.
From shootings to dodging bullets to run, like just crazy things that you don't feel like any teenager or kid should go through.
Right.
And in our experience in New York City, almost every single student or basketball player that I've encountered knows at least 3 people that has passed away in their lifetime. Mm-hmm. Right. And that's not even from natural deaths. I'm talking about gunshots and murders or whatever the case may be. Or in jail. Like they at least know 2 or 3 people that have passed away through gun violence, or 2 to 3 people who are in jail. And that itself is traumatizing, and I don't think people actually know that that's not okay.
Yep.
Right? That they're dealing with these things, and these kids are dealing with these things that some adults have never even dealt with.
Yep.
Right? A lot of adults have never even dealt with. And they don't have anyone that they can truly talk to about their feelings, or that truly understand what they're going through.
Yep.
Because some of the adults weren't shot at. Some of the adults didn't have to run from bullets. A lot of the adults didn't have to be scared to go to a barbecue because you don't know what's going to happen afterwards, right?
Yep.
So I think that experience itself from growing in the city and growing up in Harlem is a crazy thing that people aren't able to talk about. And I think, I'm not saying that talking about it is going to be the save all,
right.
You know what I mean? But I do think that it will allow people to understand that this isn't something that they should be making a regular thing for them.
Right.
Like, it shouldn't just be like, all right, we just got shot at and let's go get some food.
Right.
Like,
and never talk about it again.
And not talk about it, and or talk about it as if like it's a weekly thing. Like, it's okay. Like, we're going to deal with it and we'll figure it out. We'll still go to the barbecue. Just watch out.
Yep.
Like, no, you shouldn't have to watch out every single barbecue you go to.
Yep.
Right. I came to a time period where I personally stopped going to certain events because you got to watch out of where you're going, who you're going with, what you're doing, what time it is, you know what I mean, what street you're on. So it's about, I think it's simply just talking about how these things are different. Not everybody is going through these things, but you can also change your surroundings. You can also change your life. You can also change the conversations that you're having. You can also change the friends that you're surrounding yourself with that can have you having a different mindset. You know what I mean? So I think those are extremely important things that people need to realize that can change their lives.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I think just like you said, like obviously talking about it is not going to be the end all be all. Hopefully starting conversations at least will spark more conversations where maybe more resources, you know, can then become available. And because I also I see it all the time working in corrections where I think there are a lot of people who think that a lot of the psychology staff specifically, like, you can't relate to me, or like I cannot relate to you, or like you can't relate to anything that I've ever seen, or like you couldn't even imagine maybe.
And meeting the people that I have met and being in neighborhoods that I've been able to go to, just off the strength of basketball alone.
Right.
Being able, like, basketball has been able to save a lot of people.
Yeah.
Because of everyone loves the sport. You know what I mean? And I think that it's something that kind of gives you an identity to get out of the street stuff.
Right.
Get out of the nonsense, and keep you busy enough to give you a mindset that there's something I can strive towards.
Right.
You know what I mean? But our biggest thing, I feel like, in a lot of cities is, if I'm not playing a sport, what else am I striving towards? And finding that space of mentors, people who can have these conversations with you that are showing you other things that you can do with your life.
Mm-hmm.
You can be an engineer. You can
Yeah.
have a recording studio.
Yeah.
You can do a lot of different things. It doesn't have to
Mm-hmm.
be music. It doesn't have to be sports. It doesn't have to be the same thing people talk about every single day. But
Yeah.
you can do a lot of different things.
That's so true. I think even going to Brockton High, I feel like I saw all the time, and like it's such a smaller scale city, obviously, than New York, but a lot of people feeling like it's either basketball or it's the streets,
Mm-hmm.
or it's football or it's the streets.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like, I'm either going to excel in this sport or I'm going to most likely end up dead or in jail one day.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, like you said, we need to have more discussions and about other possibilities. And like you said, engineer, like all these other things that, I guess, just allow more opportunities.
Yep.
And give people opportunities from a younger age and talk about it. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that ties into a lot of what you're doing now and what you've been doing for the past few years, which I want to get into, and I want to talk about basketball a little more too. But I think that while we're kind of on this topic, was the justice system ever talked about when you were younger, or was it kind of just like this thing that was there and everybody kind of knew it was there?
It's definitely a thing that was there. We all knew it was there. I think my godmother talked about it more of just staying out of trouble as much as possible, or staying out of the way, so you don't have to deal with the police or deal with the justice system. And I think my aunt in the African side was extremely distrusting of any authorities,
Yeah.
any authorities that they don't know. And I think that stems from possibly the corruption in Africa.
Right.
And then just naturally you come here and you just want to do your thing and
Yep.
and continue peacefully. You know what I mean? So I think that was the biggest thing. And obviously the scare of being deported. That's a huge thing for the Africans. So
Absolutely.
they don't want to get in any type of trouble
Right.
at all. They just want to stay peaceful, do their thing, make their money, and live
Yep.
their life. But the justice system is not something that was talked about. We didn't know too much about it. We didn't learn about it. We didn't know the in and outs of it or figure out what a lawyer is. My first experience with the justice system was, I think, 15. And I'm in the Bronx just hanging out. I think it's just a bunch of us, just late at night. We probably should be home. I definitely had curfew. I used to just stay out and just thought I was cool and just try to hang out with everybody because they were allowed to do it.
Yeah.
Right? So I felt like if they were allowed to do it, why can't I just hang out with them?
Yep.
And I think that my first experience was, we all just got arrested. Like they took.
They're like, we're taking everybody.
Yeah, they took all of us. We were just walking
wow.
around the Bronx. I think there were a lot of things going on in the Bronx that night. It was like some stupid thing we did at Teenage Bronx Day or something crazy. And we were just out there, and I think there were a lot of things going on. We had a group of probably like 30 of us.
Yeah.
And police were following us, and they didn't know who had what. They stopped all of us, searched everybody, and they couldn't find anything, and they just took all of us. That was my first experience with the police. And then I was just like, I stayed the whole weekend there, in the precinct.
Wow.
Stayed the whole weekend. Missed school that Monday, and my school was on 164th Street. The law office building or police station building that you get out of after the weekend was on 161st Street. So I'm getting out of court or whatever, and I'm seeing my teammates in school, kids getting out of school to go to the train. But that was my first experience with the justice system or getting in any trouble with the law. And charge got dropped immediately. Came out of it, but it was like from then on, it was like, all right, this shit could go left real quick if you don't figure shit out. Hanging out with the same people all the time, figure out what you actually want to do. So that's when I took the step of leaving the city to go to prep school.
Right.
And
Wow.
step.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you think that you have ever thought about when you have children, if you want to have children, making sure that you do discuss those things with them?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think the biggest thing for me is experience.
Yeah.
Allowing your kids to have the experience to create their own mindset and thoughts. Obviously instilling core values that everyone should have.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Simply being kind, simply being respectful, simply being appreciative. Those are just core values that everyone should have.
Yep.
But in terms of the mindset and how they want to do things, I think it is important to allow people to create that own ability. And then they'll be able to initiate that ability in everything else that they do.
Right.
And I think that's important for any upbringing of anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. And I think that, like you said, it's like you can teach them those values and then their experience will shape the rest of it and kind of like how they, whatever path they want to take or how they want to see the world. So basketball, it sounds like, was a big escape for not only you, but a lot of people in the city. Yep. Okay. When did you first realize like that you really, really love basketball and that you maybe want to like go to college and play basketball and all that kind of stuff?
I knew I loved basketball since like 6th grade.
Okay.
I knew I loved basketball since 6th grade. I was always trying to be on the teams. I was always playing basketball. I was always outside. I was the kid who would stay outside too late to be in the park after the lights go off and then get my ass whooped when I get home because I just wanted to play ball. I was like 12 years old. I didn't know anything else. I was just outside playing basketball.
Right.
But my aunt wanted me upstairs by 6 p.m.
Right.
And I'll be outside till 7 o'clock just playing in the park.
Yeah.
Right. I was the one who would rather be outside playing basketball than in the house playing video games.
Mm-hmm.
I would leave my cousins in the house. I'm going outside.
Yeah.
I'll shoot around by myself. If it's raining, it's cold, cool. I'll shoot by myself. So I just loved basketball my whole life since young. And I think I took it more serious once I started to see prominent basketball players in the city.
Yep.
I think seventh and 8th grade is when I started to see high-level basketball.
Mm-hmm.
I started to learn about AAU basketball. I didn't play AAU basketball too much in middle school, but I started to get those experiences of dealing with playing on the middle school team.
Yep.
And doing we went to something called Basketball City when I was younger. It was just like a Sunday league that a lot of people played in. And that also motivated me to be super excited every single weekend to go downtown, go to Basketball City by Chelsea Piers in New York City, and that was a huge thing as well. But yeah, basketball has molded me for sure in trying to have a grind of knowing that I do want to do something. Yeah. Right? And that's the biggest thing. I think some people just don't have a passion for something. Mm-hmm. So if you don't have a passion for something, you don't have a direction in where you're going. Right. Right. So once you don't have a direction in where you're going, then you're just trying to figure things out on a day-to-day basis, like we talked about. And that's where you lose yourself in a city like New York City. Like New York City can move so fast. The days are just flying that you're just trying to figure out the next day. Yeah. You don't know what you're planning for. You don't have a passion, so you aren't looking a year ahead to grind and figure out what steps I need to take to get there. Right. So that's a huge thing. Is finding that passion, finding that drive, finding something that pushes you. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't have to be what pushes other people. You find that own thing that pushes you, that gets you to want to wake up early, that gets you to want to wake up early, that gets you to grind and think about things that you can accomplish on a daily basis, Yeah, and I think that you obviously found that, and you found that passion, you know what I mean? And I think that knowing, how long have I known you now? Almost 10 years? Has it been almost 10 years? Yeah. Or more than that? No. Yeah, it's been almost 10 years. Wow. So knowing from obviously what you just spoke about, and then knowing you for as long as I've known you, I think that you really have taken everything that you've experienced and you've clearly overcome adversity, like in many, many ways. And you played college basketball, you have your master's degree, right? And you are giving back so much to not only like the community, the city, and these kids.
And it's really, really amazing. I don't know, like, I feel like we don't really talk about it too much.
Yeah.
But you really are doing, I feel like, such amazing things, and you have so much to offer because you have so much experience. And I think that you can talk to these kids on like just a realistic level of like, you've been there, you love basketball. There are these other options though, just in case. And also like, this is what it takes to kind of like go to college if you want and play basketball.
Yep.
And then also teaching them all of these other things. And so it's really, really great what you're doing. And I think that I'm excited to see like where it goes. And so I do want to talk about that a little bit. When did you first get the idea for Recess? Like, how did that come about?
Well, for Recess, I've been coaching with PSA Cardinals for the last 5-6, going on 6 years now.
Okay, yep.
And Pro Scholar Athletic, PSA stands for Pro Scholar Athletics, and it's a nonprofit organization that is helping inner city youth getting to prep school, colleges, and just pushing them to strive for those things that we talked about.
Yep.
Find their passion within sports and academics in order to give them opportunities in life. And we've done that for the last 6 years. The program has been going for the last 10 years or so, 10 years plus. And the director of the program is one of my mentors who has actually helped me when I was in those wild times as a teenager. 15, 16, we used to go from Catholic school in high school, the school that was on 164th, and go down the hill, and he would help us with our homework and then get us on a basketball court afterwards.
Oh, wow.
And he was a huge role model as well for me, Terrence Williams, in the city. And after I graduated college, I didn't know what I wanted to do, right? That's the biggest thing with basketball, I think, that I also wanted to talk about is we go through a life of playing a sport for so long that once you finish in college and you don't have the passion or you don't have the ability to be a professional in the sport, you don't know what to do.
Right. You're like, now what?
What am I doing now?
Yep.
I've had a certain schedule every single day of my life. I've had this schedule.
Yep.
So now that I have the anxiety of something's missing.
Yeah.
Where am I supposed to be right now?
Right. What's my purpose?
I feel like that's what happened to me when I got out of college. Is like,
where am I supposed to be right now? That is so relatable.
I know I'm supposed to be somewhere right now, and I have this feeling deep down in my heart that I'm missing something. Yeah. But
you're like, it's
a
Wednesday afternoon. What am I doing?
Practice. I don't have a workout. I don't have training. I don't have anything. I'm just out here living my life now, and I graduated. Like, let me figure out what am I gonna do. So I think that's one of the biggest things with sports in general and people playing sports is, and how it coincides with mental health is, you don't know, right? You don't know when your time is coming where you're not playing that sport on an every single day basis and you're not looking to continue to get better at that sport. That you have to use the values that you had and that you've learned from that sport into your everyday life after you graduated.
Yes.
And that's a challenge itself, right?
That just reminded me of something else that we talked about the other day about your talent may get you through games. Your talent may get you through games, but hard work and perseverance will be what gets you through life.
Yes.
And how there's more. There's more, and God forbid you get into. I remember my parents always used to tell us this when we were going to college, and we're like, I don't know what we want to major in, or I don't know what the hell we want to do. We just want to play soccer. They're like, that's great, but what if you get injured?
Yep.
Then what?
Yep.
That's gone.
That's exactly what our program, Pro Scholar Athletics, is instilling in these kids and showing them that, yeah, we want you to have good grades, or yeah, we want you to be successful in basketball, but you have to have good grades, right? You're not gonna be allowed to play the sport of basketball if your grades aren't right and you have a passion for something else. Like find that passion for something else within that school that you're going to, because instead of going to the public school in your area, now we've created the opportunity for you to go to a prep school in New Hampshire, where there are senators' kids going. There are Europeans and Asians and all types of cultures there. Now you have more opportunity to meet different people who you don't know what they're going to be later in life, right? So now you can meet these people. You can have these opportunities. You can broaden your mindset through those experiences and create something for you. And now you know for sure what you may want to do when that basketball stops bouncing.
Right.
And that's the biggest thing for our program. Also, what it's going to relate to recess as we talk more about that.
Yeah.
But again, Pro Scholar Athletics, my mentor wrote this book. You should definitely get it. It's
What's it
on
called?
Amazon. Our PSA, written by Terrence Munch Williams. He's super passionate about it. And naturally, if he's passionate about it, I'm passionate about it. And it's on Amazon. He wrote this book, and it's basically the life experience we talked about, right? And if I quickly read this back part.
Yeah.
Williams offers his life experiences as a guide for African-American males. His goal is to offer hope, motivation, and blueprint for what it takes to become emotionally, physically, and intellectually healthy African-American male in today's society.
Wow.
So basically what he has done is there's no long chapters, right? It's basically 1 or 2 page stories, short stories, and explanations that of how to deal with these scenarios, right? So it's a lot of different things that he's gone through himself, and he gives options on how he could have dealt with the situation. And if he took this action, this would have happened. If he took that action, this would have happened.
Yep.
And the action that he actually took and what happened out of it.
Right.
And he's able to talk through those things and able to show not only African-American males, I don't think, but all cultures, how to deal with certain situations, how to deal with certain people, how to deal with culture clashes, how to deal with certain scenarios in your life that may happen, you know what I mean? And I think it has a huge insight on decision making, time management, and just broadens the mindset of how to deal with certain things. You can't always look for the respect and demand something that you're not portraying you should have. Right. And you have to be able to carry yourself a certain way as an African American, or different cultures in general. You have to carry yourself a certain way in order for people to understand that you should be taken serious. You know, and I think that this book is something that we think that is a huge step in teaching our youth how to deal with certain situations, right? There doesn't always need to be a fight. It doesn't need to be gun violence. It doesn't need to be anger. It can be conversations. It can be thought processes, and it can be just talking to each other. You know what I mean?
I need to read that. You just that little blurb on the back, like I'm sold.
I'll get you a copy. We'll get you a copy for sure.
Please.
Definitely get you
That's
a copy.
amazing.
But definitely, I think it's helpful, and I do think that it ties in with everything we've been talking about, right? The cultures, the experiences, the opportunities. He also was a student athlete basketball player who went from New York City and traumatizing lifestyle as a youth, that he's been through a million things that not everyone has dealt with, and then going to prep school as well, and then going to college and playing basketball, and then dealing with and starting the PSA program.
Right.
And I hope he writes a book about that, because that's something that people will love to read too. But
absolutely,
this itself is something that will be engaging and will be a spark for conversations. And we're looking to get them in schools. We're looking to get them in community centers. We're looking to have some people to come donate, because we want to get them in as many kids' hands as possible.
It sounds like it's necessary.
And even if it's like a quick morning conversation about 1-2 page passage, you know what I mean? I think that will spark different mindsets. You know?
And that goes along with what I was saying earlier about how people are learning different things at home than they are in school, and they go to school and everything that the teacher is telling them is not relatable for when they go home. Imagine an English class in certain schools or whatever having this book assigned. Let's read pages from this book. Kids can relate to this. You know what I'm saying? The wheels are turning.
I think it's huge. And,
definitely.
And tying that in with recess, recess, something I started with a friend of mine as co-founders, and it was during the pandemic. We just felt like financial literacy is something that our friends, families, associates, kids, everyone do not have a grasp of. And the opportunities within the financial literacy and within learning financial literacy is something that will change lives, but also change family dynamics. And I think that that's something that we had a passion in being able to change dynamics of families, because then you don't have to worry about the next generation if you're able to put yourself in place to make money in different ways, or have your money continue to grow itself without you having to work every single day. And I think that's some of people's biggest challenges, is that itself.
Yeah, like breaking that cycle of generational trauma.
Exactly. So I think with Recess, what we really try to do is through sports have these outlets and have these I guess time periods within a clinic, a camp, or a camp setting that will actually show the kids that because they're getting new opportunities with name, image, and likeness, and able to make some money through that, they can put the money somewhere, right? What they can do with it, how stocks work, how mortgages work, how finances work, how taxes work. You know what I mean? Simple things like that can get them 2 or 3 steps ahead. So that when they are ready to have to pay bills and they are making money, and they know where to allocate their money.
Right, absolutely. So I'm assuming that the NIL had, or did Recess come out at this, like around the same time that?
So I was thinking about something along the lines of Recess for a while now, since I knew that NIL was going to be a thing, since I'm in the basketball space. I've known NIL was going to be a thing for the last 3-4 years. It came about officially, I think, in the last year or two.
Okay.
And Recess was something that I think that, well, the name came about because of the actual 90s and 2000s show Recess.
Oh, shit. I didn't know that.
And it was my process. I loved that show when I was younger. And I think that in that show, you were able to see different cultures in the school and in the playground where they were just being a fool, doing whatever they wanted to do. You know what I mean? And I love that show. And I think that that's what I'm trying to do with our Recess, is have different cultures coming together and not be afraid to still play the sport that they love, but also have the mindset of financial literacy is important. I want to learn these things so I can change my family dynamic again. You know, and that's where it all started. That's where our mindset was. And we're looking to put some things together in the next year so that can continue to finish that mission.
So do you guys also teach the kids about NIL and kind of like what that means for them now?
Yes. Okay. So we kind of started with that. Some of the things that we have done, some of the events that we have done in the past, we've only had 2 events so far. And if they've gone well, both have been during traumatizing times. The first event happened when the pandemic started. Okay. So that was challenging as well. And the second event, there was like a crazy storm that day. And but we still had a crazy turnout. Oh my God, I keep having to sneeze. I'm so sorry. It's not happening. It's gonna come and then it's gonna ruin everything. Okay, sorry. You're good. And then we had a crazy turnout, but it was still very well. But yes, we do teach the kids about what the NIL is, different aspects of financial literacy, things that they can learn, where they can put their money, how stocks work exactly, and different things that they can do in order to make money. Yeah. Right. So like we talked about, it's either the sport or in the street. The street is so they can make money. Right. And if you have the financial literacy that in place where you don't have to rely on whatever street things you feel like you have to do, then you're already 5 steps ahead of everybody else. Right. If you're learning those things at 12, 13 years old that some 30-year-olds don't know, then it's literally life-changing. It's literally life-changing. And even if it's a 12-year-old, their parent can open an account for them. Yeah. Right. So there's different ways to go about it. There's different things that you can do. And I think that we're in a space where we can teach basketball players, basketball parents, this is what you can do for your kids. So when they are 19, 20, 21, and they graduate college, they're set. They know what they can do. They can still have their job and still have some money to the side already. or they continue to invest and be in a good place. I think
Right.
the market that we're in currently has one of the one in a lifetime opportunities because of how
Yeah.
the money is going to grow in the next 5 to 10 years.
Right.
So I think that's one of the biggest things, one of the biggest drives that pushed us to create Recess now.
It's such a good idea because I knew nothing when I was growing up about that. It was just like, you need to get a job at some point.
Yep.
And it was
Yep.
like, okay, you know what I mean? And like, that's how you make money. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
Or some people, like, I think maybe had chores to do and then they got like an allowance or something like that. So I had no idea what I was doing. Like, I didn't know anything about, and I honestly, like, I still don't really know. Like,
Yeah.
so that would have been extremely helpful. And on top of that, obviously the NIL was not a thing when we were in college playing sports.
It was illegal.
Right. So now it's like, okay, now what? You know what I mean? Or like, now there's this whole other opportunity and a whole another added layer to playing a collegiate sport. And so even just being aware of all of these things, I feel like can make such a difference.
Yeah.
So
I mean, a lot of companies are looking for people. They're looking for student athletes that can personify their values, right? They're looking for student athletes that they can market and help bring core values that coincide, a partnership that works. And finding those student athletes for them is a challenge as well, right?
Yep.
Some companies don't know what type of student athlete they're looking for that can help their company. And I think we can kind of be that bridge as well.
Right.
So long term, I think Recess can continue to be the middle ground of finding student athletes for certain companies to help their brand also, but you're also helping the student athletes brand because now they can make money off of their NIL deals.
Yep.
And then we can also help them figure out where to put that money.
Right.
Right. So I think long term, Recess can be that middle person and being able to build more partnerships.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's such a good idea. And like, we need more of this, you know? And that was going to be my next question was, what can we expect from Recess in the future?
Yeah, I think, like I just said, I think it's starting to expand. I think someone just texted me actually from a business called Local Hoops in New York City that we're meeting to do a camp or clinic soon, and have an additional event, possibly some tournaments in the future where we can bring some teams in and do some team-oriented events.
Yep.
And teaching the team about NILs. But I've always said this, my biggest goal in life when I'm probably 60 and 70 or retired or whatever is to have my own Recess Academy prep school. That's a passion of mine and hopefully be able to get there by taking these steps. But Recess Academy based off of, like, again, importance of financial literacy and giving opportunities to not only inner city youth, but culturally anybody that's interested.
Yeah.
You know?
That's I know I didn't know that about you.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
That's a long-term old man passion, old man dream.
We love old man passions. No, I think that's amazing. What you're doing is amazing. It's so necessary. And not everybody kind of like comes out of everything that you've been through with wanting to give back and wanting to do all these things. And so I think it's really amazing and it's really inspiring what you're doing. And I can't say that enough. And it's enjoyable for me, honestly, to even just seeing the social media, seeing like all of the talent that's out there and like stuff that you post and like seeing what these kids are doing and like where they're going. It's unreal. It's amazing. So I appreciate you for what you're doing. And I also appreciate you for being here.
I appreciate you for having me.
Of course. This was so good. I really enjoyed, like I said, I mean, I kind of already knew some stuff about you, but I also learned a lot about you today. And I think a lot of people are going to be able to relate to your story in so many different ways and appreciate what you're doing. And so I hope that people will kind of follow along, follow Recess, follow all the things to see what you guys are doing. Maybe you guys will come to Massachusetts eventually and do something in Boston. I want you to also tell the people where to find you, because I just said everyone needs to follow along. So
yes. Recess Instagram, _, recess with 3 S's, _ at the end as well. Please follow us on Instagram, Facebook as well. And we have some upcoming events, a lot of things that we are working on. Stay tuned for sure. And we definitely have a lot of things going on. Go get the book.
Yeah, go get the book.
Our PSA, written by my mentor, Terrence Williams. It's on Amazon. It's in some bookstores as well. But I think it's a book that is important and that will guide some people as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Go follow, like, comment, subscribe, all the things. All the info will be underneath in the description. And yeah, thanks, guys.
Just us, you're.
Woo!